Hey YouTube, welcome back. We are going to talk about something that is near and dear to my heart and heavily inspired by a video that was made years ago by one Lizard IRL. The first video that Lizard put out talking about gearing and where to get affixes on your character really inspired me to get better at Last Epoch, make my characters tankier, get health in the right place, and prioritize having the right affixes on my gear. He has since made a follow-up video to that, so I'll have links to both of those in the description of this video, but I want to take a shot at explaining it my way because I spend a lot of my life explaining stuff, and I think I'm okay at it. So we're going to talk about where affixes come from, affix priority, and one of my favorite topics in Last Epoch that I think the game does really well, which is opportunity cost. So opportunity cost means like if you're getting like damage on a piece of gear, it means you're not getting something else. So comparing this to a game like Path of Exile has 3 prefixes and 3 suffixes, which means you can afford to have a bad line of text on a piece of gear. Like if you're having a mirrored gear or super high-end gear in Path of Exile, there's a lot of prefixes and suffixes that you want on a pair of gloves, for example. But in Last Epoch, we only have 2 prefixes and 2 suffixes. So even if something looks like it's good or looks like it's helpful, it's getting in the way of you getting something else instead. So we're going to use this as a framework of talking about where to get your affixes and where, I guess what kinds of affixes you want in your gear, where they come from, and hopefully I'll help you understand how I look at gearing. Because when I think about gearing, it's kind of like a puzzle, and it makes me happy to think about it like that. So let's go ahead. First things first, if you've ever heard me rant about things, you know that I like to put % HP, let's go like this. I put % HP on every piece of gear that has % HP, and then I put %, or I guess let's call it hybrid. I put hybrid HP on every piece of gear that can have hybrid HP, which means I'm going to have % HP as a suffix on my helmet. I'm going to have % HP as a suffix on my body armor, and then I'll also have % HP as a suffix on my belt. So listen, if you're playing a ward-based build, if you have like 10,000 ward, maybe your build's a little bit different. But by and large, 95-ish% of characters in Last Epoch are going to be health-based characters. We're in a health meta. Health scales your endurance, and it gives you very good returns on investment. That's why we build as much % HP as possible. Hybrid HP is one of the most stat-efficient things in the game, so we put hybrid HP any place that we can, which is glove belt boots. So let's go Hib. Some Hib down here, put some Hib right there, and then we've got some Hib on our boots as well. So at this point, we already have 2 suffixes for your belt, which is what every single belt that I ever use looks like. So we always have % health and hybrid health as a suffix on our boots, ideally. If you're using like a legendary belt, LP stuff, it might be different, but this is what you'd like to have, assuming you have all normal exalted gear. So the next thing that we'll talk about after that is like where do you get crit avoidance from? So crit avoidance rolls in different places across your gear. Let's go crit avoid like this, like crit avoid. If we have to get crit avoidance, we'd like to get it in some place that doesn't interfere with something else. So we want our crit avoidance to go to 100%. There's a blessing that can give you up to, what does it go to? Because 70% crit avoidance. So 70% crit avoid blessing plus 35%, which is a tier 5 affix, crit avoid caps you. But in terms of meta choices for making the best choices possible, you might also consider doing plus to all resistances for that blessing. Suffice it to say, you need crit avoidance somewhere. Where's the best place to get it? And my recommendation is to get it on rings. So like maybe some crit avoidance here and some crit avoidance over here. That's one of our suffixes. We'll put it in green like that. We can go crit avoidance on our boots and gloves. Technically, you can go it on your helmet as well. It's not that bad. It's fine. But I would definitely like to get crit avoidance on my rings, maybe even a tier 6 or a tier 7 exalted crit avoid affix so that I can cover all of my crit avoid with just 2 affixes. Sometimes a class, like a rogue or a mage, for example, will have crit avoid as an implicit on a piece of gear, and that helps you to crit avoid cap yourself. But that's the kind of thing that I'm looking for at that point. There are some other high priority affixes. We're going to talk about those first. So let's do shred. Let's do some offensive affixes. So things like chance to apply armor shred on hit. Let's do armor shred like this. Let's do maybe armor shred. Let's go armor shred. We'll do that. And the other thing that you might care about for chance to apply on hit would be frailty. So pretty much every build wants armor shred, assuming that you crit. If you're damaged over time, armor shred does nothing for you. Even if you bleed, I promise, it does nothing for you. So crit builds all want armor shred, and pretty much every build in the game wants frailty somewhere. So where did those three things roll? Well, those all roll on your amulet, on your glove, and on your relic down here. So I circled all three of them. Let's talk about why. Your gloves can roll both, your amulet can roll both, but your relic can only roll frailty. So if you're gonna get frailty somewhere, a relic is a pretty okay place to get it. It's fine. You could get frailty on your gloves, but I'm gonna recommend that you go armor shred instead. But maybe armor shred, maybe frailty, one of those two things down here is a nice thing to get as a second suffix on your pair of gloves. It doesn't really interfere with anything else. You could have sealed, maybe Glyph of Despair. You could have sealed tier 1 armor shred and like tier 5 frailty, or you can go sealed tier 1 frailty with tier 5 armor shred. That's a nice use of your pair of gloves. It's a nice high value affix that you can stick onto that. So armor shred obviously rolls here as well. Getting a little bit of frailty somewhere is nice. I'm going to leave just frailty down here because I think that's a nice place to have it, especially because you can't get armor shred on your relic. So the other things would be, how about vitality? We talked about these two things already, this percent HP and this hybrid HP. And the other thing is vitality. It's hard to go wrong with vitality. Anytime that on your helmet or your body armor, if your prefixes are damage, or plus levels, or like class specific affix, if you're doing that, it means you're not building vitality, which is okay, but you should know that it is an opportunity cost. If you want a big health total, especially if you're a Void Knight, because all your skills scale off vitality, you'd like to have vitality. It's just 10 flat life per point, but we're in a health meta, and health means that you have better defenses. So we'd like to have as much health as possible. Vitality is always a good choice and an appropriate choice for a piece of gear if you're not sure what else to put on the helmet, or sorry, on the prefix. So let's put a V right here, maybe vit like this. Put vitality here. And for the most part, all of my boots tend to have a vitality prefix as well. If you're playing a strength stacking build, if you're playing an attunement stacking build, you could go a little bit of attunement down here if you'd like to. But realistically, if there's an option to go vitality and you're looking to put a attribute there, you'd like to do vitality. Obviously, let's grab a different color real quick. And I'm going to put the word speed right here. I have technically seen YouTube videos for build guides that recommend not having movement speed on your boots. We're not going to talk about those YouTube videos. Put movement speed on your boots. It belongs there. I don't know what to tell you. So we have, let's put speed up here in white. It's like this. And then back to yellow. We were talking about vitality just a moment ago, like this. So what are the other things? I have a shield equipped on this character. So I'll talk about shields for just a moment. Let's grab another color, maybe pink. The best shield that I would use in every single build is Bastion of Honor. No, the best shield that I would use in every single build has the same affixes on it. Ideally, my shield looks like this. It has block chance. It has block effectiveness. It has reduced damage taken on block. Ritidibud. And then it also has plus to all resistance. If I had a shield that looked like this, with one of those 4 modifiers as exalted, that would be the shield that I use in every single build. That's exactly the kind of thing that I'm looking for, right? If you're using an offhand catalyst instead, presumably you're using a catalyst that has +6 critical strike chance, right? Like +6 to spell critical strike chance. If you're not using a crit catalyst in your offhand, I kind of assume that you're using a shield instead, because the catalysts that aren't crit based for a crit build, they're just kind of okay. Technically, in a totem pop build that I played in the past, I recommend having giga cast speed and as much as possible. So I used a cast speed catalyst that has just as much flipping cast speed as I could possibly squeeze into the build. But realistically, let's say generally speaking, if you're using a catalyst, you're very likely using one that has crit on it. And if you're using crit on it, that's a great way to segue into our next conversation piece, which is crit. So let's grab another color. Let's go maybe, how about a green? Crit avoids hanging out being green. Let's give it a little green buddy, okay? So for crit, you'd like to get spell crit if possible if you're a spell build. Remember, spell crit and crit both apply to spells, but spell crit is higher numerically. So if you're a spell build, you want to have spell crit wherever possible. For my characters, when I'm building spell crit, I'd like to have spell crit. Let's put the word crit, okay? Crit like this. If I'm building crit, I'd like to have crit on the amulets, crit chance, crit multi, both roll on amulets. Let's go crit, and then how about CR crit and CRM for crit multi? Sure, we'll do that. So crit, whether it's crit chance or spell critical strike chance, and then CRM would be crit multiplier. Those are very often the things I'm looking for on my amulet up here. If you're playing one of these builds, like crit and CRM would be the two prefixes that you'd be looking for on a catalyst because they're very high value. And then if you're a melee build, well, you need to get crit somewhere. So getting crit on your gloves is a good choice for a melee build. And getting crit on your rings, rings are okay. Let's put a C right there. And then we'll put a C right here as well. So those are the kinds of places that you're looking for it. We'll talk about weapons. So we just talked about crit right here. So we'll talk about weapons as well. On your, put a C right here. There. Dividing the prefixes and suffixes. For your weapon is the best source of flat damage if you're playing a melee character. So if you're melee, you definitely want as much flat as possible. I see a lot of weapons being linked on Reddit where people are saying like, wow, look at this sweet item that I had. And it's got like exalted physical damage, like exalted physical percent as a weapon prefix. And like, I don't want to tell you not to have fun. I'm going to end the sentence right there. So the kinds of things that you'd want to have as a weapon prefix would be like flat crit. Because remember, flat crit is like anything that has a plus sign next to it, like plus 5, plus 5 melee critical strike chance, for example. Because there's a difference between flat crit and percent crit, and hopefully we all know what that is. So things that are good on a weapon prefix, like flat crit, if you're playing a melee build, any flat damage is very important because you can't get flat damage anywhere else, but you can get percent increase damage in other places. So things like flat crit, like let's go like plus CR, hopefully that tracks well. And like plus flat damage is something that you could look for as well. And then, especially if you're playing a melee build, attack speed. It's hard to get as much attack speed or like cast speed as you can get from a weapon. So if you're playing a build that really wants cast speed or really wants attack speed, then this is the place to get it on the weapon itself. So because of that, because we already have 3 high value affixes, and your other high value stuff would be like maybe crit multi. You can go crit multi on your weapon as well. But because you have so many high value things here, you probably do not want percent increase damage. The caveat would be, okay, what if you're playing a bleed build? Well, your bleed build probably still wants speed if you're playing a melee build. Maybe you're playing like a throwing bleed build, like bleed hammer throw, for example. Then okay, then your crit doesn't do anything, your flat damage doesn't do anything, your melee attack speed doesn't do anything. Okay, at that point, damage over time, percent increase physical damage. But by and large, like your melee builds, your melee critical strike builds, this is the kind of stuff that you're looking for here. So I think that covers crit chance and crit multi. What else? How about, we talked about crit avoid over here. And let's grab maybe yellow, maybe a different color, maybe orange. I haven't done orange yet, have I? So let's tie crit avoid together. So crit avoid is something that you want to get up to 100%. And the other thing that's kind of like crit avoid, you don't have to cap it, but you'd really like to cap it if possible, is endurance. So let's put an E right here for the word endurance. Where is a good place to get endurance in your build? So there's a blessing that gives you endurance. It goes up to like 27%. It's fine, but I like using that blessing for armor instead. That's a meta conversation. It's a different one. But if you're putting endurance on your gear, I think the places that you'd like to get it are in the same places as your rings or as your crit avoid. So let's put some endurance right here, a little E, and then I'll put a little endurance down here as well. just to get a little bit of endurance onto your character. The problem with having endurance on your gloves is it's a suffix and it gets in the way of you building other things instead. So if you have exalted tier 7 hybrid life, but it has endurance on it, don't removal the endurance. It just means you have to figure out where else can you get armor shred, where else can you get frailty instead, because this whole opportunity cost thing is all about like the puzzle and fitting your gear together. So let's talk about one more thing. I have a little cheat sheet that I've been talking about, or that I've been glancing at off screen here. I didn't mention attack speed. Where's my attack speed stuff? Speed is in white. I guess we'll put this in here. Attack speed, cast speed, throwing speed. Those are all very high value for this. We're in patch 0.9, and in patch 0.9, we have some new affixes, things that are called cooldown recovery speed. I'm going to call it CDR. I promise this means cooldown recovery speed. CDR, if you're in the market for it, it probably means that you're using double opal rings, because I am absolutely in love with opal rings. I think they are such a good item. But more to the point, where does your cooldown recovery speed roll? And it rolls on your, man, I should have checked this ahead of time. Pretty sure it rolls on your gloves for cooldown recovery speed and belt for cooldown recovery speed. Somebody in Twitch chat is going to fact check me. It's boot and belt. There we go. I knew I was wrong with that. Yeah, it rolls on boot and belt. So there's CDR. And you know how you remember this? It's the same places as Path of Exile. So it's a CDR suffix on your boots, and it's also a CDR suffix on your belt. So previously I was saying that your belt suffixes should pretty much always be the same thing, which is hybrid health and percent health. So for me, getting CDR on the belt has a very high opportunity cost because it gets in the way of you getting that big fat life total. Maybe you could seal tier 1 or tier 2 CDR. Maybe you could seal tier 3 hybrid health. That's a pretty nice thing to seal right there. But realistically, if I were going for CDR, I would put CDR as a suffix on my boots. And then over here, I'd be using these double opal rings as well. And I would call that sufficient for getting the kind of CDR that I'm looking for. So taking a look at this menagerie of colors that we have here, what is available? And I almost feel like I should bring up like another page here. So can I go new? What if I go like this? Oh, I could just do another one. Hey, look at that. So I'm gonna, all right, so we got this. Take a screenshot or just rewind the video if you want to. Let's do this real quick. So what affixes are flexible, yeah? The flex spots are like, well, you have 2 prefixes over here. You got 2 prefixes to worry about. One of them might be vitality, but you can figure it out. You have suffixes on your weapon to worry about. You have the prefixes on your rings. If you're using mana regeneration, you really want mana regeneration there. You have one open prefix and hopefully 2 open prefixes on your belt, because your belt should probably have cleanse as a prefix. Or maybe a sealed cleanse on your belt as well, because just cleanse is invaluably strong. It's super, super strong. So we have 2 prefixes to worry about here, assuming that we have a sealed cleanse as a glyph of despair. We have a suffix on our body armor. We have 2 prefixes on the body armor. We've got like a couple things here and there, right? So like some of these could be health, right? Like you could always put flat health as a suffix on a piece of gear. I tend not to, because I never really perfectly min-max my characters. I like to have flexible gear so that I can move things around if I need to. But if I were really going to spend like 3, 4, 5 weeks playing just one character, I'd start putting flat life on the character, because I'd start solidifying exactly where my affixes are going to be, and then I'd have less flexible gear that I'm not changing around as often. So health tends to be something that I don't worry about, because I just put like percent health and hybrid health in those places instead. But like on your body armor, you could go flat health here, and a vast majority of my body armors do have flat health. Flat health, if you're going to put it somewhere, it should be on your body armor, because it rolls numerically higher. Take a look at the tier 5 flat health for a body armor, and you'll see that it is bigger than tier 5 flat health on a ring, for example. So let's open a body armor. take a look at health modifiers, and I can make my point to you here. If you're putting flat life on it, tier 5 flat life goes up to 112 on a body armor, whereas tier 5 flat life on a ring only goes up to 75. So if you're going to have a flat life modifier, you'd like to have it in a place that rolls as numerically large as possible. That about does it. We have like, I guess you have like one suffix here. Like this suffix right here on your helmet could be like endurance. It could be crit avoid. Like it's not mandatory for this to be flat health, because like the flat health on your helmet is the same flat health on like a ring, for example. So take a look at this. Yeah, your added health goes up to 75, which is the same added health that you would get on a ring instead. It's like you could put like, you know, endurance or crit avoid. You can go like armor as well, like percent armor is something that I've done a couple times. Even down here on your body armor, I've done percent armor a couple times, because the more and more that I play Last Epoch, the more that I enjoy putting percent armor in places. It's hard to get flat armor, but assuming that you're using good body armor types, maybe the highest or the second highest flat armor that you get from putting on that base type, and it's pretty much the best source of flat armor that you get outside of blessings at this point. So I think that about covers it. What I like about this conversation is that at the very end of it, you get this weird hieroglyphic that kind of makes sense. It kind of doesn't. If you follow along through the video, it makes sense. But if you're only like skipping toward the end of the video, it kind of doesn't make sense. But frankly, I like that. It's pretty cool. All right, let's take a look at Twitch chat real quick to make sure that I didn't miss anything. Did I say anything stupid? Hope not. Oh, Twitch chat reminded me of something. There's area. Area is a good affix. I'm actually playing an area build in the background here. Don't tell anybody. It's a hipster build. But area is something that rolls in 2 places. So let's go, I have a good color, maybe gray. I'll just go like this. So area rolls in 2 places, right? Area rolls on your gloves, and area rolls on your amulet as well. So if you want area in your build, think about the kind of stuff you're giving up. On your gloves, it's competing with attack speed, cast speed, throwing speed. If you're a throwing build, it also conflicts with flat throwing damage, right? So like, if you like, where do these things come from? And what are they getting in the way of? On your amulet, crit chance, crit multi, percent damage. There's one more thing that I didn't talk about, and this is one of the 0.9 changes. In the past, I would tell you, don't ever put penetration on an amulet, because penetration does not numerically roll high enough to be worthwhile to put on your amulet, especially if it's not exalted. However, in 0.9, one of the changes was that shred, instead of having 20 stacks to it, only has 10 stacks to it. So every build lost a bit of penetration that it used to have, especially if you were like a fast hitting build. So these days, I still think like tier 5 penetration is not good. That's still not something that I'm into. But if you're getting tier 6 or tier 7 penetration for whatever the element is that you're using, I think that is a pretty good choice. I kind of do like that in terms of damage. All right, I think that about covers it. If I started going into any more detail about throwing builds or particulars of everything, I guess the last thing that I can say is every single build in the game wants chill, unless you have it somewhere else. Chill is great. If you're an armor shred build, put armor shred there. If you're an ignite build or a bleed build, figure it out. But every single build wants chill. Chill is always a good choice because it slows both attack and cast speed and movement speed multiplicatively for some reason, which is pretty cool. So hopefully this helps you have a new way of thinking about itemization and affixes and opportunity costs in the game. I know the Lizard did a great job in the past, and even with his new video of explaining how he thinks about where to get your affixes and where to prioritize putting these affixes on your build. But I like how I explain it, and hopefully having options of watching various people explain it caters to you. So if you have any questions, put them in the comment section of this video. You can always drop by Twitch Live, twitch.tv/FearThePig, where I'm streaming currently, probably. It's very likely. I'll see you next time.